if you want to study the world climate, there are three broad approaches. There are three broad approaches or ways in which you can study the climate. First is, Koppen has basically classified into a lot of types, right? Some might not be present in India, some might be present. Now, where the boundary of the tropical grasslands end and you have the region of desert, you will realize that in that zone, you have certain characteristic features which are closer to desert. This word again has been mentioned in the G.C. Leong and certain important books. This can be asked in your papers. Chaparral word. So my request would be to you that please follow this lecture very categorically, religiously and properly. If you do this, you will not face any problem. Hello aspirants, welcome to PW OnlyIAS English. I'm here Harpreet Singh with another lecture from the physical geography series, that is the world climate. Now please remember one thing. Till now, you would have analyzed that in the NCERT book, if you study the climate classification, it is given in very brief. Questions are asked out of it, there is no doubt about that. But there is something that is lacking in that particular book with respect to the analysis of climate or the types of climate for that matter. Why? You would have heard many teachers talking about the book G.C. Leong. G.C. Leong has a very good ingredient inside it that it covers various climates with maps to a certain extent and various characteristics like what is the life and economy in that particular region or associated with that particular climate. Now please remember one thing, along with the NCERT what I have done is, I have given the classification, what we have to do, that is Koppen's classification, which is standard. If you are doing optional, then probably you have to do other classifications like Trivartha, Koppen, stamps and all. But for general studies, you just have to restrict to Koppen's classification. Based on Koppen's classification, what I've done is I have classified and studied each and every classification in detail with a map taken from the G.C. Leong book also and certain advanced book, so that you do not have to even read those books or go beyond what I'm teaching you right now with respect to the types of classification of the climate. Just to give a representation, we are going to do the classification what Koppen has given. This is again asked repeatedly in the examination. Then little bit of explanation of these, and then I will go on to detail with respect to each classification, distribution, temperature, precipitation, vegetation, then obviously with the aspect of their map. Similarly, other classifications, right? Other classifications, their distribution, map, then distribution, again all map and the characteristics. So what I've done is, I have covered all the dimensions over here with respect to the type of climate that you need to do with respect to Koppen. If you do that, you do not even have to do G.C. Leong at all, because that is again bulky with respect to NCERT. Addition to that becomes very difficult. So this is NCERT plus certain other things like G.C. Leong which I've added. So please listen to this lecture very carefully, and having heard this lecture properly, make the notes out of it. If you do it, I'm guaranteeing you one thing. Multiple questions are asked in the prelims out of this topic, close to 3 to 4 also. And in the mains examination, at least 2 questions or 1 question from geographical concept come from this concept. In PCS, multiple questions come from this because it is their famous or the favorite topic with respect to Koppen's classification. So do it very, very well, because this is a very static topic. It becomes sometimes boring. Why? Because there are certain alphabets mentioned. Again, rather than just rectifying or let us say rote learning, it is better to understand here and then move ahead, and then you can revise it properly also. Let's move ahead. This is my Telegram account where you can find innumerable resources with respect to geography, Indian geography, world geography, and along with it anthropology optional and Indian society obviously, and civil services preparation in general. Next, please along with this, this is the Instagram account which you can connect me through this also. So this is a QR code for the Instagram account and this is the Telegram account. Let's move ahead. The topics which we are doing is climate classification of the world and the climate classification of India. Though we don't have to do the climate classification of India here, because we have already done this in the Indian geography when we were doing it earlier. So what is important is over here that you can refer to that, but I am going to put a map here and briefly explain it so that it basically helps you to analyze how Koppen had basically given these alphabets. When I analyze, you will be able to understand it. Now let's see. This is a beautiful photograph of the earth. You realize that this is a patch which is in white, this is in green, referring to the Sahara Desert. This is again the region where you have permanent ice cover. So you realize that why we are studying climatology or the classification, again very important. In whichever region you are lying or staying, there's a climate associated with that. And with that climate association, you know that Everything is associated with that. For example, what type of vegetation is going to be there, what type of precipitation is there, what type of, let us say, human activities are there. Why? Because now you know that very well. If you are in close to the region of Arctic Circle, you cannot have cultivation going on as you have in the Gangetic Plain. Yes? So similarly, you will have the dietary habits that are going to be changing completely. People might indulging in, let us say, lumbering activities in those regions. They might be indulging in hunting and gathering activities in those regions, right? They will be indulging in heating activities or heating the region continuously because it is so cold. So things are going to change completely. That is why studying the climate topic comprehensively becomes very, very critical here. So let's move ahead and study. So this is something that is mentioned in the NCERT, this particular slide which I have modified to make it good. This question has been asked in UPSC as well as the PCS papers, Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand also. So if you want to study the world climate, there are three broad approaches. There are three broad approaches or ways in which you can study the climate. First is the empirical classification. Empirical classification means that you are going to various places and you are gathering the data. Let us say precipitation data, temperature data, pressure data, whatever. And based on that, you have a data for all the regions, and based on that, you are classifying the regions into various groups based on the parameters that you have. That is why it is known as empirical classification. Now, if you want to classify based on the causes, what is the cause behind this climate, then it is basically referred to as genetic classification. Genetic classification, that is according to the causes. Third is a classification where you basically see that you require certain classification because you have a specific purpose in mind. Let us say you want to know the climatic classification because it is associated with vegetation, or let us say agroeconomic zones. For that, climate is required, agroclimatic zones, whatever be the case. In that particular case, you have a specific purpose for which you are making this classification. Then it is known as applied classification for any specific purpose. Over here, the word is missing, specific purpose. These are three categorizations. Now, you can be asked in the paper. They can put genetic, they can put empirical, applied, and then they will help you, they'll ask you to match them. Possibly if you haven't studied these three things, you will get it wrong. So please know them. Clear? Okay. Copy it. Next. Again, I'm repeating that for general studies, you do not have to go beyond Koppen. You do not have to go beyond Koppen. Why? Because if you have optional subject of geography, then you have to do 4 or 5 thinkers, different classifications, again, or all the explanations. For GS, only Koppen, that is it. Now, Koppen's classification, again, why? Because it is famous also, it has been revamped. So let us see these things. Please remember, this has been asked in one of the PCS papers also. It can be asked in UPSC. Now, Koppen's, it is an empirical classification. That means it is using certain data and analyzing them. So what are the data he's using? It is based on the mean annual and mean monthly temperature and precipitation data. So he has gathered all the mean annual temperature and precipitation data, and based on that he has classified. Used capital and small letters to designate the climatic groups and types. So now please remember, what he has done is he has labeled various groups and their various types and used letters, capital letters and small letters to categorize them. The capital letters, if you realize, these are the basic groups, and then small letters you will see other types. So these have been used for his classification, right? It was developed in 1918 and it has been revamped after that also. That is why it is again one of the most common and the most famous classification that you come across. So these 4-5 statements which I have written here has been asked in the PCS itself. That whether it is empirical, they might simply write that Koppen's classification is a genetic classification. Or they might write Koppen's classification is an applied classification. You will say, okay, fine, it is applied, it can be applied anywhere. No, please remember that is why. What is mentioned in the NCERT is what is considered right by UPSC. So you should be very clear about these statements. That is why whatever was required to be picked from the NCERT, I have picked them very, very categorically and put them on the board. Where you might make mistakes, that is the reason. Now, let us see the various characteristics with respect to the climatic groups. These are the groups, broad categorization. Then there are subdivisions of B and E, and there are types. Now you need to remember them also. Why? because UPSC has repeatedly asked these questions in its various examinations, whether it is CAPF, CDS, even NDA papers, whether it is PCS papers. So please be very well aware of this. A basically represents tropical. What is the characteristic? Average temperature of the coldest month is 18 degrees Celsius or higher. That means it is lying in the equatorial region. So it is obviously the temperature is going to be all the time high only. B is a dry climate. Again, referring to regions like the desert, arid and semi-arid regions where the evaporation or potential evaporation is even more than the precipitation that is taking place. So when there is more evaporation that is taking place, than in comparison to what is the precipitation coming. So what you realize that it is going to be arid condition. So that means it is going to reflect approximately a desert-like climate, right? We'll see that. C is a warm temperate. Average temperature of the coldest month is higher than -3 degrees Celsius, but below 18 degrees Celsius. D is a cold snow-covered forest climate. Average temperature of the coldest month is -3 degrees Celsius or below that. E is a cold climate. Average temperature for all the months is less than 10 degrees Celsius. And last is H is highland, cold due to the elevation. Elevation, that means supposingly if you realize certain regions which have a very high altitude, and because of the altitude, whichever region they belong, at the top you will realize there is going to be the characteristics are going to be very cold or snow-covered regions can be there. Why? Because as you move up, there is decrease in temperature. You've already done that. Normal lapse rate says that there is a decrease in 6.5 degrees Celsius per 1000 meter. So similarly, the temperature will fall, and at the top you will see snowfall. Even a lot of mountain peaks in the African region which are close to the equator, but the tops are covered with snow. Why? Because of the altitude, right? So this is due to the elevation. Now B and E are categorized into two further subcategories. B is dry climate. It is further classified into S, that is a steppe, that is the semi-arid. Now steppe, please remember, in simple words, these are again the temperate grassland type region, right? Some of them can be semi-arid also. Steppe is basically, we'll go ahead and we'll study all of them also. So what are the characteristics? Meanwhile, W represents the desert, right? E represents the cold climate. It is further divided into T, that is a tundra. F is a again, ice cap, permanent ice cap is present there. Now, further climatic types. These are small letters which we had mentioned earlier in the introduction to Koppen. Small a, hot summer, average temperature of warmest month is greater than 22 degrees Celsius. C, cool summer, average temperature of the warmest month is less than 22 degrees Celsius. F, there is no dry season. W, dry season in winter. S, dry season in summer. Now, if you realize that dry season in summer, you say, how come dry season in summer? If you realize regions like Tamil Nadu, which receive rainfall majorly during the northeast monsoon, you will see they will be having S type of climate also there. Subgroup. Obviously, there are going to be other categorization. We'll combine them. These major groups and types are combined to have an exact climatic type that is present. So whatever I have mentioned over here, these and these small, these are combined. These alphabets are combined to represent what the characteristic classification of a region is. H, average annual temperature less than 18 degrees Celsius. M is a monsoon type, short dry season. So these are the climatic types. These are the climatic groups. Now, based on these explanation and types, please understand, Koppen has basically classified into a lot of types, right? Some might not be present in India, some might be present. But again, from the world perspective, what we're going to do is we'll explain them after this basic understanding. We'll go on to all these things, right? Now, tropical humid climate is divided into three categories. Tropical wet, that is AF, no dry season. Tropical monsoon, AM, short dry season. Tropical wet and dry, AW, winter dry season. If you realize this AF, how come this has come? If you see A is tropical, that is average temperature of the coldest month is 18 degrees Celsius or higher. F, no dry season. Where will you find no dry season? In the equatorial region where there is continuous rainfall. That is why, how does this alphabet come? AF, that means tropical wet. All the time it is wet. So there is no dry season. So no dry season. So these alphabets have been combined. Understood? Tropical monsoon AM, short dry season. Tropical wet and dry AW, winter dry season. B, that is a dry climate, which has been divided into further four categories. Subtropical steppe, BSH. B was a dry, S is a steppe. Again, B was divided into two categories, B, S and W. So B, S. H, if you realize, we have already understood that average annual temperature is less than 18 degrees Celsius. So, low latitude semi-arid or dry, subtropical desert BWH, low latitude arid or dry, mid-latitude steppe BSK, mid-latitude semi-arid or dry, mid-latitude desert BWK, mid-latitude arid or dry. Warm temperate mid-latitude climate, that is C, this is divided into three categories. Humid subtropical CFA, no dry season, warm summer. Mediterranean, very important, CS, dry, hot summer. Marine west coast CFB, no dry season, warm and cool summer. D, snow covered forest is divided into two categories. Humid continental DF, no dry season, severe winter. Then subarctic DW, winter is dry and very severe. Cold climate is divided into two categories, tundra ET and polar ice cap EF. Tundra is no true summer and this is perennial ice covered. Highland, it is H, high with snow cover. So this is again the possibilities that he has given. That these are the possibilities of the type of climate that you can come across the world. Now, based on these, I am going to make you understand what is now mentioned in GC Leong with their explanations. I have covered the NCERT part also inside them and added more content from GC Leong so that you do not have to go or get confused with respect to this classification. Many times, multiple times, let us say, they will ask you Mediterranean region or Mediterranean type of climate is found in what regions or which regions? The British type is found in which region? The Laurentian type is found in which region? You are blank in that case, right? So we have added that. So I have covered all these things over here, so you will not face any problem. Let's see. Tropical wet climate AF, right? Now AF, geographical distribution typically found near the equator between 5 to 10 degree north and south of the equator. Now found in the lowlands of Amazon, Congo, Malaysia and East Indies. Let us see the map first of all. When we are doing geographical distribution, see, this is the region of the Amazon basin. This is a Congo region. Then again you have the Southeast Asian region. So this is where you find AF. Keep in mind the map. That is why I have drawn map for every single climatic type now. AF. Now let's come back to this point. AF. Temperature. So the temperature over here again, you know, it is lying close to the equator. The temperature is going to be high. The average temperature is throughout there 25 degrees Celsius, which might range from 20 to 30 degrees Celsius, right? Precipitation, abundant rainfall throughout the year, greater than 2000 millimeter or more. So there is tremendous rainfall throughout the year and it continues. So there is abundance of rain here. Vegetation, again, this is again a region of tropical rainforest, right? Dense canopies there. Dense forests are present there. You know, you have imagined the Amazon rainforest itself, which is known as the lungs with respect to the oxygen. Mahogany, ebony, cabinet wood, dyewood are found here. Epiphytes are also found. These are those plants which basically grow on the surface of the other plants. These are epiphytes, very characteristic feature of this type of climate. Life and economy, this is basically practice shifting cultivation, livestock farming and plantation. Plantation of coffee, sugar cane, cocoa, spices and tobacco are very common presently here. The certain regions which are again have certain mineral resources, like if you see Congo, it is the largest cobalt reserves also. So cobalt mining on a large scale is done here. Along with it, Brazil and Peru also have gold reserves. And that is why gold mining is also done in these regions. So this is again, we are covering the economic activities also, climate also, life also comprehensively. Clear? And then we have already done this map wherever it is present. So we have done with AF, that is tropical wet climate. Let's move on to the next, tropical monsoon climate. Now, tropical monsoon climate, you remember AM. Geographical distribution, they occur between 5 to 30 degree north and south of the equator. It is obviously present in the Indian subcontinent, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, parts of Vietnam, South China and Northern Australia. Now, let us see the map. These are the regions where you see the AM is majorly present. True monsoon is present here. AM. Clear? So, having studied this, let us come back. Climate. Now, you know that very well. You have already done the monsoon with me in physical geography of India very clearly. And you know that how the reversal of winds take place. Southwest monsoon, northeast monsoon. So the characteristic feature of monsoon is the seasonal reversal of winds. And this is where seasonal reversal of wind is being mentioned. So three distinct seasons are present. Hot dry season, cold dry season, again the rainy season. So there is, because you know that specific season is for rainfall, right? rainy season. If you realize that southwest monsoon, when it comes, it brings a lot of rainfall, major amount of rainfall. So these are specific rainy season in India, or for that matter in the monsoon type. Temperature, monthly temperature is average monthly temperature 18 degrees Celsius, but again need to know that this is average. There are again summer and winter temperatures vary greatly. Summer temperature might go to 30 to 45 degrees Celsius or even more, and winters might go from 15 to 30, depending upon there might be certain regions where it might go even further below. Rainfall, it is again wet and dry, distinct wet and dry season. As I mentioned, during the monsoon season it is very wet. Other seasons you might see dry seasons also. Before the monsoon season, you have a spell of dry season. Vegetation, wide variety, lush grain forest to deciduous forest. Now you realize you're moving away through a region receiving very highest amount of rainfall, that is the rainforest, that is AM. And you going to a region which has relatively distinct season where rainfall might not be there. So that means it has lesser amount of rainfall. So it might be having rainforest also, but it will be having other types of forest like the deciduous forest. So lush green forest to deciduous forest. You have the sal, teak, bamboo, mango, mahua, jamun, neem, shisham. Again, life and economy basically revolves around agriculture activities and lumbering activities. That means cutting the wood. We have done the map also, that is AM. Let's move on to the other, tropical wet and dry climate, Savannah or the Sudan climate. Please remember, this is referred by AW. Whenever the word Savannah comes, something should come in your mind very clearly. These Savannah means tropical grasslands. These are alternative words which you might be asked. Savannah is a tropical grassland. It can also be known as Sudan type of climate. It can also be known as tropical wet and dry climate and represented by Koppen as AW. When we are talking about steppes, those are basically temperate grasslands. These are tropical grasslands. You can be asked questions on these also. Clear? Now see, geographical distribution, Africa, South America, North Australia and India. It is known as Llanos in Orinoco Basin, Venezuela, and Campos in Brazilian highland. Now, you can be asked a question where they might be mentioning Llanos, Campos, they might mention steppes, they might mention prairies, they might mention pampas, and they will ask you which among the following are tropical grasslands. Because these two are tropical, the others are what? Temperate grasslands, which we are going to do. So you should be very well aware which are tropical and temperate. Now let's see the map, you will analyze it. Tropical grasslands over here, it is Llanos, again you will realize in the this is region again, in the Venezuela region it is present. Campos you will realize in the Brazilian region it is present. This is the African savanna region. The upper part is known as Cano and this is known as Salbury region. This is known as the Australian savanna. So you can be asked any of the words and asked in the question in the prelim examination also that which among the following refer to as the tropical grasslands. If they want to twist your leg a little bit more, they might ask you which among the following are associated with Sudanese type of climate or savanna. So you should be clear that these are the same names, tropical wet and dry, savanna, Sudan climate, AW. Clear? Next, there are distinct summer and winter season. There is no distinct rainy season present over here. Mean annual rainfall is 800 to 1600 millimeter. Temperature, if you realize, again, average temperature is 20 to 32 degrees Celsius. Again, it might go a little further also. But consistent warm to hot temperature throughout the year is a categorization. If you see the vegetation, as I told you, these are tropical grasslands. So the grasslands and the scattered vegetation is a characteristic feature where the grasslands are present. Again, there are scattered trees also present here. So scattered trees towards the arid region, rainfall decreases and you see a thorny scrubland. Now please understand, from the region of AF, you went to the region of AM with lesser rainfall. Then you went to the region of AW, which is basically referring to as a tropical grasslands. Now, along with that, other extreme would be the desert region. Now, where the boundary of the tropical grasslands end and you have the region of desert, you will realize that in that zone, you have certain characteristic features which are closer to desert. So that will have the thorny scrubland also as you move closer to that arid region. Life and economy, Livestock rearing and agriculture, again in some regions where it is possible. Like for example, the Maasai tribe in the East African region are involved in pastoral activities, whereas Hausa tribe in the West African region are basically cultivators or practice settled cultivation. Clear? Next, we have already done the map. Next comes the hot desert. You remember BWH? Now please remember one thing. The hot desert again are those regions which you know very well, can be asked in your paper, that which of the following are referring to as hot desert or the cold desert. For example, if I mention Gobi Desert, right? If I mention Patagonian Desert, now those are cold deserts, but these are hot deserts. So you should be very clear which are hot deserts and cold deserts, which I'm going to tell you now, right? We'll do hot desert and we'll do cold desert also, which are known as temperate deserts also. These are the questions which you had been missing till now. You were thinking of where we should we study these, from where shall we get the answers. It is basically this climate classification from which you were being asked and you were not aware of that, right? So BWH, these are also known as trade wind deserts. Why trade wind deserts? You know that very well, that trade winds, when they come to this region, those trade winds are offshore. When they come to these regions, they basically have no moisture. So they basically lead to arid conditions in these regions. What do you mean by arid conditions? See, any winds that are flowing, which are not bringing moisture, they are not going to add value with respect to the water vapor, or let us say the rainfall over there. So what is going to be their arid conditions majorly? So they are conditions of permanent drought. There are various deserts like Sahara, Great Australian Desert, Arabian Desert, Kalahari, Namib. So let us see these aspects also first of all. Now when you see the geographical distribution, you will see the hot desert climates are typically found near the Tropic of Cancer or Capricorn on the western coast of the continent. They are found on the western coast of the continent, usually between 5 to 35 degree north and south of the equator. Certain things you will analyze is why western coast. And when I mentioned these statements over here that they are found in, these are the deserts that are found. Let us see the map first, as we have done for the earlier ones also. If you see the regions of North America, you see three major deserts. So you remember that we have done the mapping series also in this particular channel. I've done all the deserts there also. So you should be very well aware of it. If you haven't done, please go through the one short video of the mapping series which we have done. Sonoran Desert, you have the Mojave Desert, some people call it Mojave also, but again, however you pronounce. Chuham Desert over here. These are what? Hot deserts, right? Then you have the Sahara Desert, you have the Somalian Desert, Arabian Desert, Thar Desert shared by India and Pakistan. If you go further south, you have the Namib Desert, you have the Kalahari Desert, all hot deserts. Then you come to Australia, which is known for a large number of deserts. See, so some of them are the Great Australian Desert, you have the Simpro Desert, then you have the Tanami Desert, you have the Great Sandy Desert and the Gibson Desert. So these are the deserts. Simpson Desert again is one of the, Simpson Desert is also one of the important deserts which you basically have studied when we were doing the Australian mapping series also. So all these deserts which I've shown you here are the hot deserts. Now you can be asked, they can mention certain names of the cold deserts also, and they can ask you which among the following are the hot deserts. So you should be aware of them. Clear? Let's see the characteristics. I had already mentioned they were found between 15 to 35 degree north and south of the equator, and basically on the western coast. Why western coast? Why western coast? There are certain reasons behind them. First, offshore trade winds. I have already told you the offshore trade winds which are flowing are not carrying moisture with them. And if they are not carrying moisture sufficiently, you realize that they are not going to produce rain. If they are not going to produce rain, they will be not contributing to any rainfall. So that means there's a possibility of aridity being there. Second is cold currents. The cold currents that are flowing along the coastal regions, remember that they hinder the precipitation to take place in those regions, because they might, they are like the barriers towards, because they create cold conditions there. So it is not going to be possible for the rainfall to take place there, right? So when we talk about these cold currents, these are also a very important contributing factor. Descending wind circulations. It is quite possible that in certain regions where wind is descending now downwards, it might create certain high pressure region or acidic condition. And that is why you know that very well when we are talking about desert conditions. The important thing that happens is that for the rainfall to take place, if there is certain convection, there is updraft of wind, updraft of air in the form of wind. It might move upwards if it has sufficient moisture. It might move upward. It might, let us say, cool. It might condense because of the saturation, and then cloud formation, possible rain. But if there is descent, right, what happens? It creates to relatively high pressure condition. High pressure conditions again are somewhat that is not favorable for the precipitation to take place. That is why descending wind circulation is again also responsible for that. Temperature, daytime temperature may be above 40 degrees Celsius or even more in certain regions. In Libya, you have recorded more than 55 degrees Celsius also. Diurnal range is very high. Why diurnal range? What do you mean by diurnal range? Diurnal range means that the day and night temperature difference is very high. Why? See, these are regions where you know that I have told you moisture is lacking, so there is no cloud formation also. During the daytime, so the complete insolation is coming, and that insolation heats the land to a very great degree. And that land heating basically heats the surrounding air also, which is in contact. So the temperature is very high. It might go to 50-55 degrees Celsius also. Now during the night time, you know that because of the specific heat of the land, it cools down very quickly. Cooling down very quickly basically leads to the terrestrial radiation that is in the long wave being thrown out or radiated. The clouds are not present there, so what will happen is there is no barrier towards restricting the going out of the long wave terrestrial radiation. So what will result in that it will quickly lose the heat also. So the night temperature might fall down tremendously. It might fall down to, let us say, 5 degrees Celsius, 4 degrees Celsius, or even more. And that is why the range is relatively high between the day and the night time. Next, precipitation is less than 25 degrees Celsius. What are the reasons? Again, the same reasons. Why it is less? Because again, subtropical high pressure belt is there, offshore trade winds, low humidity and cold currents. So everything that is mentioned here, similar reasons why the rainfall is less. Vegetation, if you realize, xerophytic vegetation like cactus, which has basically adapted itself to these extreme climatic conditions where they have adapted to that condition. They have long roots because in search of water, the roots go deep. Then they have few or no leaves. Leaves are a means through which again transpiration processes take place along with other processes. So in order to prevent the loss of water, they might not have any leaves. A few leaves or no leaves. Another feature that they have is waxy, leathery, hairy or needle-like structure, which basically help to reduce the loss of water. So these are modifications that are present here, right? Life and economy, nomadic pastoralists like they might be indulging in pastoral activities related to camel and goat or even sheep. Oasis farming of dates and vegetation, mining, oil and minerals might also be possible over here. These are the economic activities which they basically indulge in. Now, this is the map which we had done. Let's move to mid-latitude desert. Now, this is BWK. Now, these are the temperate deserts or the relatively colder desert which we had discussed. Let's see this now. See, these are temperate deserts because again, you know that very well, they either are because of the continentality effect. Continentality means that they are located in the interior regions of the continent where they do not receive sufficient rainfall. Or the rain shadow effect, that means by the time the winds reach them, they are not carrying sufficient moisture for them to shed there. So that means these are regions where are again acidic conditions, but they are cold desert. Reason, we'll see them. Geographical distribution found at the higher latitudes. So automatically higher latitudes basically contribute to the weather conditions being relatively colder also. Usually between 30 to 50 degree north and south of the equator. Now let us see the map over here to analyze where they are. This is something very, very important that you should know. That you can be asked. You can be given a list where hot and cold deserts are mentioned and you have asked which among the following are hot or cold. Great Basin over here, above the Mojave or Mojave Desert as you say, is the Great Basin. If you come to South America, you have the Peruvian Desert, Atacama Desert and Patagonian Deserts. These are cold deserts. Do not get confused. Then you have the Iranian Desert, Kizilgum Desert, Gobi Desert and Taklamakan Desert. All these are cold deserts. Colder deserts, right? Let's see here. They experience greater temperature variation than hot desert. Why? Now please remember, if you see them, during the summer time, the temperature, because see, again, the cloud cover is not there. So during the summer time, they receive a lot of insolation and the temperature increases to, let us say, greater than 30 degrees Celsius also. But during the night time, it might go much below the freezing point. So if you see the variation or diurnal range, you will see it is much more than even the hot desert. Because in hot desert, it is not necessary that freezing temperature is going to be there. No, but here it might go a lot below the freezing temperature also during the winter time. So we realize that the variation or the diurnal range with respect to the temperate desert is even more than the hot desert. This is something that you can be asked as a statement in your preliminary examinations. Precipitation less than 25 degrees Celsius, as you know, this is an arid condition. But unlike the hot desert, they have a more predictable rainfall pattern. See, in the hot desert, it is very sporadic. When it is going to rain, nobody knows. But in this region, it is relatively predictable. Ki yes, you can know there is going to be specific, some rainfall is going to be there. It can be predicted. Unlike hot desert, because those regions are where any sporadic instance might happen and it might rain, but not here. It is more predictable in these regions. Vegetation, drought-resistant shrubs, grasses, and some trees are adapted to arid conditions. Life and economy, again, nomadic pastoralism, trade and exchange between the tribes that are present in these regions are basically involved in them. So let's move ahead. Warm, temperate, western margin, very, very important. This is Mediterranean climate. Now, please remember, this is known as winter rainfall climate. It is denoted by CS. When we were doing the chapter of the pressure belts, I had very categorically mentioned what is the reason behind this type of climate. If you realize or revise that concept, I had told you during the time of the summers, Mediterranean region is under the influence of the trade winds, which are again offshore and they do not provide them with moisture. During the time of the winters, due to the pressure belt being shifting, the region of close to 30 to 40-45 degree latitude comes under the influence of the westerlies. Now the westerlies pick up moisture while crossing and they provide moisture to the western margins of the continent. And that is why they receive the winter rainfall. So this is the reason which you should be very well aware of. This can be asked in your preliminary examination as well as the mains examination. So it occurs along the western coastlines of the mid-latitude between 30 to 40 degree north and south, as I've already mentioned in the western coastlines, commonly found in the western coastline regions of Mediterranean basin of southern Europe, coastal California, parts of South America, regions of Chile and South Africa. I'll show you the map also, but remember, though it is based on the name that is around the Mediterranean basin, but the best region which is suited for the description of this particular climate is central Chile. Central Chile. So if you are asked in the examination, they mention these four options and they ask you which among the following represents or the best representation of the Mediterranean region. You will say, "Arey, all of them are a representation of Mediterranean region." But the best is central Chile. So remember that this can be asked in your papers also. Let us see the map. This is the California region again. This is the region of Chile, again western margins if you realize. Then this is the Mediterranean basin. This is again South Africa and this is Australia, southern part. So these are the regions which are experiencing what? The Mediterranean climate. And you have understood the reason also. I've explained you the concept of the westerlies during the time of the winters. Westerlies because they flow from west to east, right? Easterlies are the ones which flow from east to west. Clear? Okay. So if you see temperature, they have mild winters with temperature rarely falling below freezing point and hot dry summers around 25 degrees Celsius. Then also it is pleasant only. Temperature of the coldest month is less than 18 degrees Celsius but greater than minus 3 degrees Celsius, and the warmest month is greater than 10 degrees Celsius. So it is pleasant almost throughout the year if you see. Rainfall from 35 to 90 centimeter. Summer experiences minimal rain while winters obviously experience rainfall due to the westerlies, and there might be certain sunny days also associated between the rainfall that happens. Now if you see vegetation, please remember this, that this word again has been mentioned in the G.C. Leong and certain important books. This can be asked in your papers. Chaparral word. Now this is again consists of the drought resistant shrubs and evergreen trees like olives and cork and certain grasslands which have adapted themselves to the Mediterranean climate. That climate where it is going to rain during the winter and it is generally dry during the summer. So this is a characteristic feature, chaparral, along with mealy, Matorral, Maquis or Gorecu and Fenbos. These are the characteristic vegetation of the Mediterranean Sea. And you can be asked question on any of them, like which among the following is associated with the Mediterranean climate or not. Species like pine, fir and cedars are also found. Bush and shrubs again are very common or predominant over here. Life and economy, agriculture, citrus fruit export, viticulture and cattle rearing. Please remember, these are regions which are very famous for wine. So citrus fruits are grown because this climate is very suitable for them. Citrus fruits are grown on a large extent. Again, grapes, cultivation of grapes for making wines is viticulture, right? So large number of brands associated with wine making are concentrated in these regions also, right? Okay. Next, temperate continental or steppe climate. Now, steppe climate, do you realize, if I had mentioned it earlier also, I told you these regions are temperate grasslands. Savannas were tropical grasslands. So you associate them with BSH and BSK, both of them. They are found between 40 to 55 degree north and south of the equator. It lacks maritime influence because it is located in the interior of the continent. They are far away from the ocean, and that is why you realize there that these climates that are found are because of the continental effect also, right? So they are away from the influence of the maritime, being entirely in the continent. Great Plains of North America, Eurasia, steppes, parts of Central Asia and Pampas. We are going to see the map. Don't worry about that. Don't worry that I'm reading it. We will see the map also. Now let us see the map which I have mentioned. Prairies are the are what? The temperate grasslands of North America. Pampas, South America. Steppes, again in the regions of Eurasian region or Russia region. Then you have the Manchurian grasslands. You have the downs in what? Australia. You have Canterbury grasslands in New Zealand. Now comes the veld, V-E-L-D. Please remember, whenever you read this veld, it is associated with South Africa. You know that very well. But now there is further classification. In South Africa also, in the northern region, the veld is known as bushveld. In the southern part, it is known as high veld. So please do not commit this mistake. Bushveld in the northern part of South Africa and high veld in the southern part of South Africa. So these are what? The representation of all the steppe type of climate or the temperate grasslands. So you should be very well aware of them. Please note them. That is why I made the map, so that you remember it throughout your life whenever you're giving the paper. Now see, temperature. Summers are generally warm to hot, 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, while winters are cold, temperature is less than 0 degrees Celsius. That is why, again, temperate grasslands, because during the winter months, it is, again, regions have massive snow cover also. Precipitation, low rainfall, 25 to 75 annually. Dominant vegetation is grassland. As you know, these are grassland regions. Grasses are tall, fresh and nutritious. Moving poleward, as you move towards the polar region, you realize wooden steppes with conifers are also found there in the upper latitudes. Life and economy, agriculture, wherever it is possible during the months when it is not covered with, when there is not extremes of temperature, then during that time agriculture is possible. Cultivation of wheat, barley, maize and other grain crops are possible, and otherwise you realize pastoral activities or sheep rearing is also very common activity in these regions. This is again the representation of the map. Now comes the warm, temperate eastern margin, that is the China type. Now please understand, China type, which is named by CWA. Now this CWA climate is basically a modified type of a monsoon climate only. It is not only found in China, found in other parts also. So you can be asked a question that China climate is found in China only. No, other parts also you'll see them. That is why these regions become very important. Now see, in central and north China, including southern Japan region, southeast USA, natal East Australia, southern Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay and northern Argentina. Let us see the map now. This is the distribution. You see these regions of Northern American region, you see the Southern American region, you see the African region, you see the China region, and you see the Australian region. So based on this type of climate, the other regions have also been named. Clear? Now let us come back. Temperature, warm, moist summer and cool and dry winter. Average monthly temperature fluctuates between 4 to 25 degrees Celsius. Now rainfall over here is 60 to 150 centimeter. It is moderate. Vegetation over here is lush vegetation, feathering both evergreen and broadleaf forest and deciduous forest. That is why we call it a modified form of monsoon also. Life and economy, agriculture over here, corn, cotton, tobacco, rice, tea, sugarcane and dairy. Dairy forms an important ingredient in these regions. Let's move on to the next. That is the cool, temperate western margin. That is a British type of climate. It is known by CFB. Now, it is named after again the British Isle region, that is the UK and the Ireland region where the climate is found, and similarly found in other regions also, you will realize that this is again those type of climate which is considered to be very optimal for humans to survive or live, right? Now this was also a basis of the reason why Britishers used to say that we are the people who were born in this land, that is what they call as a father's land, the Great Britain, and they were bound to be rulers, right? They used to use it. They said that this is a region where best of the climatic type is present and which is optimal for the development of human beings and to be intellectual enough to rule the world. So again, now the thing was that this region or the climate which is present in these region is suitable throughout the year. So that is why it is considered most optimum for the human efficiency. Please understand why it is known as human efficiency. See, when there is extreme of warm, let us say very hot temperature, a very high temperature is there, 40 degrees Celsius, you are unable to work properly. When it is extreme cold, you are still unable to work properly. Why? Because extremes are present. You experience this in India itself, in the northern part of India. What do you see? That means there are going to be hindrances with respect to climate also. Now these regions have moderate climate, so that is why on an average it is considered to be highly optimal for the human efficiency. Now these are found in the western coast of the continent in the middle latitudes between 40 to 60 degree latitude, found in British Isles, western coast of Norway, parts of New Zealand and certain areas of Pacific Northwest. So that is why these regions are again considered very suitable to live. You can see here. You can see these regions of United States, Canada. You can see the regions again in South America. You can see the regions of again the Scandinavian countries, the Ireland and United Kingdom region. You can see the parts of Europe and Tasmania along with this New Zealand region. So these are considered as British type of climate. Again, very suitable for humans to live. Let us see what is special in them. Mild temperature throughout the year. So temperature is mild throughout the year. Summer are cool to warm with mean annual temperature from 5 to 15 degrees Celsius. So it is very moderate, cool for everybody to stay. Warming effect of the northern Atlantic drift makes the winters relatively mild. Now what happens is, this region, even during the time of the winters, see, you know that Gulf Stream moves and extended in the form of North Atlantic drift. Now those are warm currents which tend to make these coastal region even during the winters very favorable to stay. That is why the coast in these regions are not frozen even during the winter months, right? You have seen the isotherm maps. I've shown you during the winter months the isotherms move northward. Why? Because of the ocean currents. This question was asked in the UPSC paper itself. Then I think in 2025 also. So please remember what I'm teaching right now. If you have a conceptual understanding, you will be able to do those questions also very well. Clear? Okay. Now comes rainfall, 50 centimeters to 200 centimeters of rainfall annually, consistent, even and relatively high rainfall throughout the year, no distant dry seasons. There is no distant dry season. There is again rainfall throughout the year that is happening. Westerlies bring heavy rainfall. Again, westerlies begin heavy rainfall. That is why in the western coast are also experiencing a lot of rainfall. Next, vegetation, deciduous forest, and the deciduous forests were present, but they have adapted to this particular climate. So the type of vegetation that is found includes oak, elm, ash, birch, beech and poplar. Willows are also found. You have very well understood that you would have heard Sachin Tendulkar using English willow. Now the willows are over here found in the wetter regions, which are very useful, very good for making the bats, cricket bats. Life and economy, agriculture, grains, fruits, vegetables, dairy farming, mixed farming and market gardening very well over here, grown to a great extent, very well developed. Along with it, you realize these are regions of industrial belts also. Britain, France, Germany, hub of industrial hubs, along with Denmark, Netherlands and New Zealand also. You see regions of dairy development also over here, market gardening and mixed farming also grown. So these are also very developed regions. So that is why it is told to be as one of the most optimal for the human efficiency. Clear? This can be asked in your papers also. Okay, let's move ahead. The cool temperate eastern margin, Laurentian type, it is denoted by CFA. Many people can ask you, or UPSC can ask you in the Laurentian type also. It has asked in previously also. Because you at that time would have not heard the word also what is Laurentian type of climate, so it is very difficult for you to attempt also. So that is why I have covered everything very clearly over here. Geographical distribution, these are basically found in two regions. One is the North American region as the Asiatic region. North American region in the eastern Canada and northeast USA, Newfoundland. In the Asiatic region, it is found around eastern Siberia, North China, Manchuria, Korea, and northern Japan. Let us see the map. This is the region in North American region, and this is the region in the Asia region, which is found, the Laurentian type of climate is found majorly. Now, please understand temperature. It is cold and dry winters and warm and wet summers. Winter temperature might even go below the freezing point, and summers are as tropical region climate that you experience. So the winters are very harsh here. So the temperature is from minus 10 to 20 degrees Celsius. So that means summers are good. Temperature is around 20 degrees Celsius, 25 degrees Celsius, it is good. But the winters, you realize it is very harsh. You would have realized by now also, right now New York is again undergoing extreme waves of cold, frozen. So those are extremities that you find, right? Rainfall, 75 to 150 centimeters of rainfall distribution throughout the year with a maximum during the summer. See, unlike the Asiatic region, see, Asiatic Laurentian type as American Laurentian type are two different. Similar characteristics, but little bit differences also there. What is the difference? The North American region has uniformity in precipitation with the late summer maxima or the summer maxima. That means in North American region, there is a tendency that during the summer months, larger amount of rainfall is going to take place. Unlike in the Asiatic region, it is very disruptive, or it is not very systematized whether the rainfall will take place this, when, or at particular period. So it is not very, well, you said, say, uniform, that it might not be well distributed, it not be happening at the exact time. Over here, the North American Laurentian type is relatively more predictable. Vegetation, coniferous forest north of 50-degree latitudes, like dominated by pine, spruce, firs, and larch. Deciduous forest south of the 50-degree latitude, oak, beech, maple, and birch. Now, extensive logging. Both temperate hardwood and softwood have been extensively harvested for this region, again for lumbering activities. Life, again, lumbering of birch, pine, and larch. Fishing. The regions of the Grand Bank of Newfoundland are the regions where mixing of the cold and the warm currents take place, which create the best of the atmosphere for the fishing ground. So these are regions where fish economy is also very predominant, right? Okay, so these are the regions which you have seen. Next comes cool temperate continental, Siberian, boreal, or Taiga type, DWC. So you can be asked question of Taiga, boreal, Siberian, or cool temperate, same. It occurs only in the northern hemisphere where the high latitude continent have wide east or west spread between 50 to 70 degree north. See here. These are the regions. The upper regions, if you go, you will see the tundra type of climate or the polar. Below that is the Taiga type. This is the region. Again, colder region only. But you see this is the region. Below the extreme cold, you have this, which is known as the Taiga type. Clear? Temperature, brief warm summer with temperature reaching 20 to 25, but winters are see, the summers are very brief with temperature close to 20, 25, 22 degrees Celsius or even 25. Winters are very long and very extreme. Temperature might go to minus 40 degrees Celsius also. Rainfall 38 to 63 centimeters. Boreal forest grasslands adapted to harsh conditions. Conifers are again the most common type of vegetation that you find here. Life and economy, again, you know that lumbering activities, agriculture in the limited time, grains, potatoes, and some vegetation are found here. Tapping. Tapping means that you catch an animal, kill it, and obviously remove its fur and sell it. So tapping is for you are basically catching animals and using them to get their fur, which can be sold in the market as a very at a very high rate also. Why? Because this is in great demand in international markets. That is known as tapping. Now comes the tundra, that is Arctic. Now this is the last categorization, the extreme cold. It is found in the polar regions near the North Pole Arctic and the South Pole Antarctic. It is ET. Now see here. It is in the extreme north coldest region and in the Antarctica region also. Extreme cold, complete frozen. Extremely cold climate. Winters are always below minus 37 degrees Celsius only. It might go to even severe conditions, minus 50 also. Summers are close to 10 because of the direct, again, you might be receiving sun rays, and during that time, the insolation might raise the temperature also. Now, you please realize that this is just an estimate, this is just an approximation. Even in the summer, the temperature might be even close to zero also in extreme cases. It is very common. That is why I've said approximately. Rainfall very low, mostly in the form of snow. Vegetation limited to hardy grown plants, and majorly these are mosses and lichens are found there because the conditions are such that it is not feasible for very large vegetation to be possible. Life and economy, you said semi-nomadic activities are taking place. Tribes including Eskimos, Lapps and Samars are present here, right? So these are the reasons. Indian classification, now we have done the world classification. Indian classification we've already done in the Indian physical geography. In the previous series, you can see the one-shot video also. But let us see, because this is one of the map here. This green region is AMW, which is monsoon type with short dry season. Clear? Receiving the extreme form of rainfall. Then you come to this region AS, monsoon with dry season in summer. You know that because it comes under the influence of northeast monsoon, and that is why it receives winter rain during the winter times. Otherwise, during the time of the summers, it is parallel to the southwest monsoon. It does not receive much rainfall over here. So this is AS. Next comes this region in pink. This is BSHW, that is steppe type of climate. Again, over here also. BWHW is hot desert, that is a Thar desert. This region in brown is AW, tropical savanna type of climate. You've already done that. This blue region is CWG, that is monsoon type with dry winters. This region is E, that is polar type of a climate. And this is red, DFC, cold humid winters with short summer. So this is basically the representation of the Koppen with respect to India. Now you know the world also, now you know India also in this particular classification which we have done. So my request would be to you that please follow this lecture very categorically, religiously and properly. If you do this, you will not face any problem in the question that are asked from this chapter. Every single preliminary examination, at least 2 questions are going to be there from this, directly or indirectly. Because they might ask you indirectly without naming the climate also. So 2 or 3 in cases I have seen in previous years, even up to 4 to 5 questions have been asked from this. So please remember them, do it well, because they can link the concept with respect to economic geography also. Then also the questions can be asked. So you've done the climate, you can easily solve them. And in PCS papers and other UPSC papers also, this topic is one of their favorite topics. So please do that well. If you have any queries, let me know in the comment section. In the coming next video is going to be the video of oceanography. We are going to complete oceanography in one video, and in this particular week you will be finishing with the physical geography series this particular week. That is oceanography video will come, and then you have the biodiversity video and you'll be done. So take care, quickly revise it. You'll be seeing the video in a couple of days. Take care and Jai Hind.